Welcome back to John's Briefs, everyone. Here again with Mark Victor from Attorneys for Freedom. And I have an interesting one. It's one that really blew up on the channel with a hero who we got to talk to on Active Self-Protection Extra earlier, do an interview with Salah and talk about his defensive use of force. I want to talk with Mark, though, about carrying against company policy and what that means for us as self-defenders. Today's video is brought to us by Firearms Legal Protection. Firearms Legal Protection is a legal defense program for lawful gun owners with a 24/7 emergency hotline and plans designed specifically for self-defenders. They are offering a discount on their plan to Ask fans, so hit the link in the description for that. So Mark, as an attorney, as somebody who sees these all the time in the criminal world, any criminal problems carrying against company policy?
Well, it depends what the company is, right? Because there are some places.
The company is Uncle Sam.
Yeah, it depends where the company is. So, but your typical company, right? That's not one of the prohibited places to carry a firearm. No, not a criminal problem at all. Although you could imagine a prosecutor saying it was some type of a trespass if it was carried in an area where they were very anti-gun. Right? The argument could be, well, you trespassed on the property with a firearm. Even here, I think in Arizona, when the sign is out front that says no guns allowed, and you walk in violation of that sign, I think you risk a trespass charge.
So we got some more I want to ask about that. Okay, so I think this is where I really wanted to go. But so in this instance, from a criminal perspective,
most times, no. You're going to probably lose your job. Because the company policy doesn't have to be wise. It just has to be followed. And it may be wise. I don't know what exactly their policy is, but I could imagine reasons why a company might want to have that policy, right? Because you certainly don't want people carrying who don't have any training and who don't know what the heck they're doing. But
you can make a company policy here at your company that says everybody has to paint their face purple before coming to work every day. And it doesn't have to be smart, wise, or good. It's your policy.
Right. What this really comes down to is what we talked about in one of the other videos, property rights. We have to understand you don't have a right to do whatever you want anywhere you want. You have a right to do whatever you want on your property with your stuff. And so if you're going to enter somebody else's property, they have rules under which you can enter. And if you violate those rules, in theory, you're trespassing. I've never seen a prosecution like that. I know a lot of the gun guys don't respect the signs that store owners put up there that say no guns allowed, but this is just disrespecting the property rights of another person. This is an anti-freedom position, even though it may be a pro-gun position. It shouldn't be a pro-gun position because, you know, the reason we're pro-gun is because we're pro-freedom, and that makes us pro-gun. We're not pro-gun at expenses of all other freedoms. And so we want to be consistent about things. I know some of the gun guys get upset about this, but sorry, I mean, it's a freedom thing. You don't get to take your gun wherever you want to take your gun. On your property you can, on other people's property you got to respect their rules. With that said, this guy's a total hero. Wouldn't it be great if the press ran this story? You know, a good guy with gun stops bad. You know, one of the maybe hundreds or thousands of cases every year that we have in the thousands of cases every year in the United States where good guy with gun stops bad guy with gun. And as you mentioned, you said the police response was really
hugely long.
This guy could have killed everybody in sight. Everybody in all the stores adjacent to this store before the police had showed up on this one.
Second question I want to ask. Now, I want to talk separately. We're going to have a whole video on the trespass issue and about the no gun signs, okay? Separate issue. But in this particular one, that Saleh, when a guy comes in, he's wearing his hood up and a mask on his face. And that was his, whoa, something's really wrong here. And then he said that as soon as the guy pulled the gun out of his pocket, he saw the gun, that's when he went to draw his gun. And we had to talk about that a little bit because my first thought was, okay, wait a minute. In my place of business, knowing, especially, gosh, man, Metro PCS, it seems like, man, there's a lot of armed robberies at Metro PCSs in the United States. And I believe Metro PCS employees are 3-0 in gunfights on the Active Self-Protection channel. But the thing is it objectively reasonable, given those totality of circumstances? Dude walks in with the mask on his face and his hood up. It's 75 degrees outside that I go, I'm getting a gun in my hand at that point and not waiting for him to have a gun in his hand. Do you think that's reasonable?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to have a gun in your hand, not to brandish it. Because I think once you brandish the firearm, all you got is a guy in a mask. And I don't think that's going to be enough. You got definitely suspicion that there's a problem, but you know, you already sort of gave away the fact that this is in a warm climate.
Right.
But if this is in Michigan in the winter,
Totally
this-
reasonable.
Totally reasonable. But there might be other reasons. Maybe the guy's got skin cancer on his face and he's had some surgery and he's embarrassed about the way it looks. I don't simply because somebody walks in with a mask on a warm day isn't enough to stick a gun in somebody's face. And I think if this guy had put a gun in this guy's face and he didn't have a gun, it was just a mask he was wearing.
Whoa, we got problems.
I think you got a big problem.
But if he'd drawn his gun, come to that maybe a low ready position, I'm not pointing a gun at you. Hey, show me your hands. What are you doing? Why are you wearing a mask in my store? More reasonable?
Probably slides by.
Probably slides by.
Probably slides by. You know, but there again, I'm very conservative, right? I'm not a tactical guy. I'm a
Yeah,
legal
you're a
guy.
legal
And
guy.
so, you know, as a legal matter, I want you far away from that. I sort of like the idea that maybe you've got your hand on your firearm and it's still contained at that point, ready to go. If you were carrying with a round in the chamber at the time, you're
Which
fine.
I say you should
Which
be.
you
He
say you
says
should.
you shouldn't.
Correct. This is a good time to chamber around. I'll give you that.
Okay.
So I would certainly chamber around under those circumstances, just in case.
For which I'd have to draw the gun, but you know.
No
separate.
question about that. No question about that. But we could do videos on my clients that have unlawful discharge cases.
See? So
There are
here's-
many of those as
This
well.
is a good point. So I've said this in comments all the time, but something I want to mention here is that the people that you see have a different problem than the people that I see. And so because of that, in our varied areas of expertise, you recommend things for the problems that you see, whereas I recommend things for the problems that I see.
Yeah, I would say it like this. For the very responsible gun owner, the guy that's watching your channel, that person's most likely to have to come in and hire me because they're carrying with a round in the chamber and they did something, they weren't paying attention, they had an accidental discharge. What they don't understand about that situation, at least here in Arizona, this is a mandatory prison felony charge.
Can be real trouble here.
Simply the accidental discharge, even in your own house, nobody got hurt, nobody was almost hurt, doesn't matter. You're going to be arrested, taken to jail, and if you go to trial on this charge and you lose, you are going to prison for over a year. So it's a pretty serious charge. And when I
Pretty
look down and say, what do the good guys get in trouble with? That's what they get in trouble with. So I'm sure there are cases, and even when we talked about it, when we had our little debate on it, there are definitely cases where you're at enough of a tactical disadvantage by not chambering around that you should have had a round chambered. It's a balancing test. That's
It
what we're
is.
talking about. And
So if you're going to carry with a round in the chamber, what I always say is you have to have a quality holster and not futz around with your gun. You got to have good, appropriate firearms handling skills and don't do the wrong things because you have a negligent discharge, can be charged up to a felony, and that could be real trouble. Obviously, you don't want to go to, because you make a mistake with your gun, nobody gets hurt, you go to prison for a year. That's crazy. But again, in this instance then, a great reason perhaps to put your hand on your firearm.
No
Because you
doubt.
can be really fast from that perspective,
No
right?
doubt, yeah.
To have that, hey, show me your hands, whatever. I'm going to go back here like this and have my hand on my gun. Hey, show me your hands, buddy, and I'm ready if that doesn't happen. In this particular case, it all went down so fast that...
he got lucky. Really.
He did,
This
and-
guy's running around shooting, discharging rounds in the store. Very lucky he didn't get hit and killed by
Yep.
this other guy.
And
This other
thankfully
guy
had
coulda sh-
enough.
The other guy could have shot him right through the counter he was
Yeah,
at.
we-
So, if you want to engage in this, and that's a tactical question, it's not a legal question, but if you want to engage in this, you're really risking your life in a situation like this.
You are.
I tend to agree with the store and say, look, if the guy comes in and wants to rob the place, give him whatever the heck he wants and let him go.
Whereas I say, listen, if somebody comes in and points a gun at me, I have every right to stop that, and I think it's better to stop it sooner. And so if my skill set is high, I feel confident that I can and I should.
That's the thing about these. There are many variables. If
There
the
are.
skill set is high and you have the opportunity and you're ready to go, absolutely.
So if you're carrying against company policy, not a criminal issue really, but a civil issue, they can fire you, no big deal, and
No
that's
doubt.
well within their rights. When we're talking about drawing a firearm on somebody, I think there's an interesting thing here about defensively displaying a firearm versus pointing it at somebody before he's got a gun in his
No doubt.
hand. And so make sure you know that line and make sure you know the statute in your state and how that statute gets implemented in terms of the defensive display of a firearm too. Mark, appreciate the knowledge, man.
Thanks for having me, brother.